Hey guys, welcome back to the Laid Back Homestead. I'm Crystal, and today we are back in the kitchen for Father's Day weekend. I have 3 recipes I'm going to be making. Now, my dad has passed on, so these 3 recipes are for my husband. One of them is candied bacon. I'm going to make a shortbread cookie for him, something he likes. And I have a new dip recipe that we're going to try. So all 3 things, these are really easy, real simple ingredients. They come together very quickly. So if you need a last minute gift idea or you need a last minute party food item, you may want to give one of these recipes a try. So for this first recipe, the candied bacon, this is a cute little gift idea if you need, a last minute something for Father's Day. But all you need is bacon, a little bit of black pepper, and brown sugar to get started, and an oven. And you can see I have a wire rack on top of my cookie sheets here. I've made this without the wire rack before. Most recipes call to have some sort of wire rack. I'm going to give it a go this way since that's how this particular recipe is written. So I'm going to just start by mixing up the sugar. So a 1/4 cup of that and a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. I've also made a version of this recipe with cayenne pepper. Now this recipe does call for 12 pieces of bacon. Sure, you can use as many as you want. I am actually going to I need to save a little bit of bacon for a recipe I'm making tomorrow. So if you wonder why I don't use all the bacon, that's why. And now I'm just going to take this and start laying it out on my tray. I saw different recipes called for different bacon types. This one particularly said not thick cut, but I have definitely come across versions of this of candied bacon recipes where they do call for thick cut. Okay, so now that I have them spaced where I want them, I'm just going to go ahead and take a little bit of the brown sugar mixture and sprinkle it on each one. The recipe said to do about a teaspoon per strip if you're doing 12. And then I'm going to go through and pat it in once I'm happy with the amounts. Now I'm just kind of lightly tapping it in, and then these will be ready to go into the preheated oven. My oven is preheated to 375. Now that's going to bake in the oven at 375. The recipe calls for 20 to 25 minutes, but they recommend checking it at around the 18-minute mark. The recipe also recommends that you rotate your pans halfway through. So I'm just going to set my timer for 9 minutes so that I can rotate my pans at that halfway mark and then see if they're done at 18 minutes because I certainly don't want them to burn. Okay, so we're at the halfway mark. My timer just beeped. I'm going to rotate these. And set the timer for another 9 minutes. The next recipe is only 3 ingredients. It's a cup of softened butter, some sugar, some flour, and shortbread cookies are just one of the easiest things you can make. I did pull out my commercial grade KitchenAid. Fun fact, I used to run a cake business out of my house. So I have a regular KitchenAid and then I have a commercial one. Well, I could not find my regular KitchenAid, so I had to pull out the big boy. And he's a lot heavier than I remember. This recipe does call for a 9-inch baking dish. I don't have a 9-inch square baking dish. I have an 8-inch square baking dish, so that's what we're going to use. Now, obviously, you don't need a commercial grade KitchenAid mixer to make this recipe. Honestly, if you just had a hand mixer, I'm sure that would be fine too. But since I have one and it rarely sees the light of day anymore, I figure I may as well use it. So first, you're just going to cream together your butter and your sugar. So we're going to cream together our 1 cup of butter and ½ cup of sugar until it is nice and smooth. So now we are nice and smooth. Not sure if y'all can focus in on that. And all it basically means is that you want it fluffy. And now it says to beat in your 2 cups of flour. I'm really going to do this about ½ a cup at a time. Oh, the bacon has been cooking now for 18 minutes. So I've got my crock pot going in the background with a batch of tomatoes, another about 40 pounds of tomatoes cooking down to make my marinara. And since that's quite the journey, she's going to be up here for a while. But I'm going to make some space so we can pull the bacon out. So I ended up going the full 20 minutes, which got it to the consistency that I know he's going to like. I did get a little nervous because I was smelling like that burnt sugar, which I assume is all the burnt bits at the bottom. But that's okay because the bacon itself looks great. I can't wait for one of them to cool enough for me to try it. I ended up with 13 bacon strips. The recipe only called for 12. He'll never know he's missing one. So while those are cooling, I'm going to go ahead and get our dough. And all you do is you press it into the baking pan, in an ungreased baking pan. So I'm just going to use my clean hands to get all of this dough. And it's okay if it looks a little crumbly, because when you start pushing it together, it all kind of just forms. Now, if you were worried about this being prettier, you could probably use the back end of a spatula to smooth it out or make it look more cohesive. But I am not that worried. My husband will not be that worried. And because I'm making this in a shorter dish, an 8x8, it may alter the cook time a little bit. Now, the last step the recipe calls for is to prick with a fork. I'm going to bake this 325. So now that I have finished pricking it with a fork, we're going to move it to the oven. I'm using my upper oven for this one since my bacon was going in the bottom one. And we're baking this at 325 for 30 to 35 minutes. So for the last recipe, also 3 ingredients. You need a cup of thick salsa, a pound of ground sausage. I'm using the hot sausage, and 8 ounces of cream cheese. And then it does say to top with some green onions and cilantro if you have it. I have green onions. I don't have cilantro, but I do have that already chopped up for the end. So the first step in this recipe is browning up and breaking up our sausage. Now that our sausage is cooked through, I'm going to add in the cream cheese. And now we're going to work on breaking that up. The recipe, at least where I read, I didn't see that it called for it to be softened cream cheese. I did take my cream cheese out to soften because I was already taking butter out to soften for the shortbread. So my cream cheese is already pretty soft. And now that my cream cheese is incorporated, I'm going to go ahead and add in a cup of this chunky salsa. Actually, I'm going to just add in a cup and a quarter because that was all that was left in the jar. No reason just to keep a little bit of salsa left. So we'll go ahead and mix this all together and then we are done. Now she does say to, you can serve this right out of your pan. She was using a pretty cast iron skillet, so that makes a lot of sense. But I don't have one of those available, so I'm actually going to transfer this to a little casserole dish. Now mine is probably a little bit pinker just because I use more salsa, but I'm not worried about that. Well, it smells really good. Smoothing it out. Just gonna sprinkle on some green onions. All right, timer just went off at the 30-minute mark, and it does look like my shortbread is done. You can see there's like nice golden edges, which is what I look for when making shortbread. Now it does say to slice these while they're still warm into whatever shapes you want. I typically do bars. And no, I am not the straightest cutter or even at it. My husband is normally the one that cuts them, but since these are for him, well, that's close enough. Well, all right, guys. About 2 hours in the kitchen and Father's Day gifts are complete, or Father's Day treats are complete, however you want to look at that. I am going to give them a little taste test just to see. I know what the shortbread's going to taste like. Amazing. And I'm sure the candied bacon will as well. But the dip is new to me. So let's give these a little try. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and taste test what we have here. I mean, I pretty much know what some of these taste like, but the dip, I definitely want to give this a try. And I just have a little Tostito. That's really good. I used a medium salsa and hot sausage, so it's definitely got a kick to it, which we'll love. But it's not super hot because you got that cream cheese in there. But that is really good. I've made a version of this before with like the Velveeta and the Rotel and the ground beef or ground sausage, but this was the first time I've ever done this one with the salsa and the cream cheese. Definitely a winner. Could see me bringing that to family events. So as I was scrambling to put the bacon away in the cup, which by the way, ignore the silly cup, I thought I had a cute mason jar that I could put them in, but I don't. They're all being used. So I put them in the cup for picture purposes, which they look absolutely goofy. But anyway, one of them broke. So I'm going to go ahead and taste that one. I mean, you can't go wrong with bacon and sugar. The only thing I don't get from it is really the black pepper. Maybe a little at the end. But if you are into spicy things, I would maybe use a cayenne blend instead. I've made the candied pecans that way too. I want to say my candied pecan recipe that I make every year has the cayenne in it, and that's really good. Good breakfast. Now, the shortbreads are a little too warm for me to try and get them out right now, but I do have a piece that broke off when I was cutting it. So I'll try that, even though I've made shortbreads before. I made a huge cookie platter of cookies from around the world this past Christmas, and they were several variations of shortbread, so pure buttery goodness, just the way my husband likes it. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. It was about 2.5 hours in the kitchen, but we managed to knock out 3 fast and easy Father's Day treats. If you enjoy this type of content, cooking, gardening, homesteading, I would go ahead and encourage you to subscribe. I have plenty more video ideas. So thank you all for hanging out with me in my kitchen today. And until next time, stay blessed.